Give them a community rap. Welcome. San Diegans for Gun Violence Prevention, if you can stand up. And then everyone else is part of the wraparound. Oh, UPAC.
Yeah, what? Yeah, no.
If you have a warrant for your arrest today, you're going to get it signed off. Officer Terry?
Yeah.
You're gonna get it signed off. Oh yes, I'm sorry. President Council from Elo Rivera, Martha Zapata, District 9. If you need any money, she got a check. And then everyone else that meets here, just want to let you guys know we're here every Monday from 6 to 6:30. We break bread together. We share our stories. We share our success stories, our failures, and we try to come up with solutions because it does take a village. We call this community wraparound. You're welcome. Open door policy. You come in. And if you weren't here last Monday, we formally announced that community wraparound is now going to be a 501.
Yeah, he's good with it.
3
501c3.
Let's do it, baby. Rob's going to be the CEO president. Robert Ontiveros. Rudy's going to be the VP. These guys right here. We're going to have that. We're going to have a workshop for that at the Jacob Center. So if you need more information on that, we'll sign up. What is a 501(c)(3) at the Jacob Center?
Follow us on Facebook.
Oh,
Instagram.
yes. They just opened up 2 Facebook accounts we want you guys to get into. Is Community Wraparound is one, and the San Diego Seasons of Peace Facebook, both of those.
And we're also on Instagram too.
And we're also on Instagram. If you also like to record a testimonial and plant a seed of peace, Bishop Bowser will be recording, doing some recordings after the presentation, okay? But with no further delay, let's give our wonderful guest a welcome today, Dr. Sid Martinez.
Thank Bowser, Pastor Samuel, honored to be here today. My name is Sid Martinez. I teach at the University of San Diego. And today what I'm going to do is present a little bit of some of my research that I've been doing with some different organizations. So I started doing research on this back in 2017. And at the time, I wasn't interested in ghost guns. I was interested just in gun violence. I wanted to know where guns were coming from. And so at the time, I was looking at interstate gun trafficking. And then over time, what I kept noticing when I was out there with law enforcement is that they kept talking about ghost guns. They kept showing up. And then something happened this last year that just pushed it over the edge, where now the ghost guns are among the most commonly found weapons that are used for shootings and for gun-related homicides. So today what I'm going to do, I'm going to focus on 4 themes. I might as well give you the conclusion. I teach sometimes I lecture and ramble on. What was I supposed to take away from that presentation? So let me give you the timeline. Kind of 5 points I'm going to talk about today. Number 1, we're going to talk about the period from 2013 to 2016. That period is when we first see the rise of the AR-15 ghost gun. That was actually the first kind of ghost gun that emerges, and it's the dominant ghost gun in 2013 2016. The next period is between 2016 and 2022. And in that period, it's no longer the AR-15 rifle. This is when the Glock handgun becomes the dominant weapon. And there's lots of different reasons why. And I'm not really sure why people who make ghost guns like to model them after Glock, but that's the most common ghost gun that you find out there. And then in 2019, this is a pivotal moment. I'm also going to talk about this. 2019, I know you all had a presentation on this. In 2019, it was no longer interstate traffic weapons that were the dominant gun used for homicides. Something happens, and in 2019, you start to see the emergence of those guns being the dominant weapon for homicides. We start to see it, and here's the last thing I want to mention. That's not even the worst of it. The craziest thing that I just kind of stumbled on, and the media is just picking up on this, is starting in 2020, we're starting to see fully automatic Glocks and AR-15s on the street. And this is just the beginning of it. So that's the one thing that really caught my attention the last time I went out to the field. So the big point for today, having said all that, the conclusion is that it's easier to get access to guns that are potentially more harmful and more lethal. That's some what I'll talk about today. Let's start with the study. So again, in 2017, I was working on a documentary, and it kind of gave me an excuse to hang out with the police, and the police actually let me film them. I got a pretty good rapport with one of the departments in Northern California. And so I spent time with 3 different law enforcement agencies. The first one was the gang enforcement team. Their job is to get guns off the streets. I spent a lot of time riding around with those guys, watching what they did. And, you know, being a Mexicano, you learn to kind of talk with people, schmooze with people. And so I got to know some of the gang detectives. So then I started hanging out with the gang investigation unit. They felt comfortable with me. So I started spending time with them. And then the gang investigation unit, got to know those guys. And now I started interviewing and hanging out with the ATF, kind of getting the federal level. And, without that federal level, I don't think I would have got the bird's eye view of how bad the gun violence problem is. They're the ones that are tasked with dealing with trafficking of weapons. That's the one federal police force that deals specifically without that. But I'm also a sociologist, so I also spend time with another group similar to this, known as Advanced Peace in Sacramento. They're an outreach group that tries to interrupt violence. Those are the 4 places that I got my information for the study. That's just a little background on the design. Let's start with a simple question. I'm sure a lot of people already know this, but I have to assume that some people know. What is a ghost? So a ghost gun is a weapon that is unsecured. What that means is that every firearm, usually on the inside of the barrel, has a stamp, and that stamp is basically the registration number, right? And so every gun is supposed to be stamped with this serialized number, and so it's important so that it can be traced. So if it's used in a homicide or something, it can be traced back. So the best example analogy of this would be like your car, right? Your car has a license plate number, and it also has a VIN number, and that's the way that the DMV tracks your car. So that's probably the best way to think about what it means for a gun to be serialized, okay? And you might say, well, who cares? Like, why do we need, who cares if a gun's serialized or not? When the police are investigating a homicide, they need the gun. And usually if it's serialized, they can trace it back to the person that bought it or where the gun came from. So if we're talking about dealing with gun violence, it makes it very difficult to solve crimes without the serial number on a gun. So initially, when these guns came out, the way the ATF referred to them was that they were referred to as, this is mostly the kind of ghost gun I'm going to be today, referred to as an 80%. And the reason why they refer to ghost guns as 80%. Actually, if you go online right now and you just type in, yes, can you guys hear me? Okay? I have a loud voice. I'm
There you go.
probably,
There
I'm
you
probably
go.
louder without this microphone.
No,
I take
you
it off
sound
right
good now, just like that.
It's good? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so the 80% basically refers to the lower receiver of a handgun. So it's basically the trigger where the bullets are fed through in the gun. It's except for the slide and the barrel. And so that's the term that people originally referred to when they talked about it. They referred to it as an 80% because it was only 80% complete. Okay, that's just kind of a quick definition of what a ghost gun is. Before I go any further, there's actually 3 types of ghost guns. The first type is a gun that's manufactured in a factory, and for some reason, before it gets the stamp on it, it's usually an inside job. Somebody takes the gun out, and there's no number on it, but it's legally produced. It just misses the step of getting serialized. Those aren't very common, but occasionally that does happen. Somebody gets some guns out of a factory, and so those can also be ghost guns. The kind that I'm going to be talking about, the most common type, is the 80%. 80% is what I just described, right? It's a kit, and somebody buys the kit, and if you go to YouTube right now, and you just type in ghost gun, how to assemble it, there's tons of videos there, and they're also referred to as P80s. There's actually a factory in Nevada called P80, which I'll talk a little bit about, and they produce these kits. If you go online right now, you'll see a whole bunch of products sold from P80. Those are the most common kits people buy, and they assemble them, and that's mostly what we're dealing with. The third kind of ghost gun, a 3D printed gun. This is where, I don't know if people are familiar with talking about it earlier. I can tell you about a 3D printer. You put the and it prints out next start guns, but they're so the only when you ATF, when I interviewed some agents, a lot of ghost guns, and there's a couple things happened around this time, 2013, 14, where a lot of kids were killed, a lot of national attention. When Obama and he rifles. So you know how Americans are, when as soon as they hear that the gun's going to get banned, of getting around restrictions they were going to impose at that time. And it was also actually these guns were already emerging like a year or two before 2014. But it's two kind of AR-15. That weapon them. And so you needed fancy drill press, right? Now they're made out of plastic. It's a lot easier to make. Early on, this is what the first kind of ghost guns looked like that the ATF had to deal with. And if we talk about the black market that emerges after this, in 2014, we start to see a jump in ghost gun manufacturers in the streets. So we get the first kind of so it's not really new, it's been for a while, but let me just talk about what the profile of the people look like who are making this. So early on, the manufacturers of ghosts, mostly white, suburban, had a drill press, right? That's one of the reasons why they could do it.
Yeah.
And they also happen to be gun enthusiasts. So these are people that were kind of strong Second Amendment believers. They're kind of afraid of the government. Maybe they were kind of white nationalist groups, right? They lived in the suburbs or kind of in rural areas. And the way it worked is they would produce these for themselves, but they would have some connection to the streets that would allow those guns to get into the communities. Let me just give you an example. Actually, the ATF told me about this when I went ahead and looked it up online. The Sacramento Bee actually published this investigation. So the way it worked was there was a barber shop in Sacramento, and it turns out they were selling drugs and guns out of that barber shop because it was a front for illegal activity. And one of the patrons who went to the barber shop also worked at a gun range. So he knew somebody who went to that gun range who was manufacturing these guns or these AR rifles out of his house. So the guy from the gun range, and the thing to note about early on in ghost guns is that the black market had a middleman, and the profile of the people that were producing them was very different, mostly white men, and it was, to put it in the words of the ATF, it was a layered black market system. You needed somebody who had that connection to the guy in the suburbs making these with his equipment, and so the pipeline had a middleman. That's the point I want to emphasize. And it looked like that until fairly recently. That's the way the market kind of evolved. So then things start to change. Again, we're mostly talking about AR-15s. From 2013-16, the AR-15 is the main gun, but it changes to Glock pistols around 2016. So we start to see a lot of these in the streets in 2016. They become more common, and more importantly, we start to see more of these kits in circulation. It was easier to kind of get these guns. So I just want to stop here and pause for a second. In the production. There's another period, 2017, for the first time ghost guns become more common in the black market than legal serialized firearms. Now, what do I mean? In 2009 as well. Guns these interstate from Arizona up in Sacramento or Oakland, they've come from Nevada, right? Why is that the case? Way it would work. Not on probation parole. They go over to Arizona, they buy 5, maybe 10 or whatever, and then they sell them and make some money. And that's one of the main ways that guns were finding their way into our communities, used for homicides. But what I'm suggesting here is in 2019, that changes. And it changes for the first time Yeah, no, like guys, no. For people in lies traffic or stolen guns in residential burglaries or in smash and grabs, which is what I'll talk about. Why I'll talk about those in just a minute. So why does that happen? Well, there's a couple of things. Two main factors. One, the knowledge to assemble ghost guns is very easy. Again, if you go to YouTube, if you just search this on the internet, you'll find countless videos about how to put these ghost guns together. So the knowledge is out there. There's widespread information, and people are catching on. Accountable for this, but P80, the company in Nevada, actually dumbed down the kits so that as the ATF agent, they made them idiot-proof. So that people had to be easy and so this weapon the Glock this is the most weapon that you see. Just a little side story. I don't have this in the presentation. When it guns off the street, guns, about change a lot. So now people in the streets can make them themselves. That's fundamental. No middle, no layers between the people who use these guns. Agent, you create them and use them yourself, or you can just pump that to other people that are doing illegal activity in the streets. So it's no longer the gun white enthusiasts in the suburbs producing these weapons. Anyone can make weapons. Just to give an example, every time I hang out or I go out with the office, I ask, I want came across a manufacturer. So this was in February, and they said, well, we members, they use the government to go out and so the end result, this, and there's actually a lot of research on this, is that the number of firearms in circulation has increased dramatically. And there's a term sociologists refer to, they call it the availability. It's real simple. It goes like this: the more guns that are in circulation, the more likely maybe you have you'll probably live, right? If you're on the other end of the you introduce a gun into a situation, so the likelihood of someone dying goes pieces. Full-blown markets where people can actively buy and sell guns on social media. So there are special sites that you can go where people sell these, or if you know the right group of people, you can just go to their Instagram page and they'll put things up there like come get it while you can, right? And then you can just buy it right off the internet. There's special websites as well, but just for my research, what I found is that that what police officers will do is they'll just troll people's social media and they'll look for them to make a reference to a gun, and this is how they kind of catch on to people. That's one of the ways that they track people down. So the main thing here that I'm emphasizing is that there's no middleman. The black market has exploded, and guns can go directly from the streets out to commit crimes, and so we didn't see that before. And the point that I want to make here, just to emphasize, is that, you know, with these kinds of weapons, we're more likely to see more violence. In the past, the traditional way that gun violence occurred through illegally obtained weapons was through what's known as smash and grabs. This is where people would maybe go to a gun store, back the truck up in front of the window, and just go in and grab as many guns as you could. Home robberies, that's another very common way that people would illegally get weapons. And I've already mentioned interstate trafficking. So this is no longer the common way that guns are acquired for shootings. And according to some of the research that I've done, homicides with ghost guns are becoming more common. One officer I interviewed in Sacramento, or if you combine the interviews that I did with officers in Sacramento and in San Diego, they estimate, these are just crude estimates, but about 30 to 50% of all gun-related homicides now are committed by ghost guns, right? So it's not just a trivial thing that you find it here and there. They're used very often. And I've also learned from talking with officers that non-fatal shootings are also common as well. So what I thought I would do, and I usually don't do this, but it's more interesting to hear from these officers themselves what it's like. So what was it? Probably 2 months ago, I was hanging out with one of the units. I was riding along with them, and there was an individual who had threatened someone. So they went to the scene, and this person had an AR-15 rifle. They were able to peacefully de-escalate the situation, and they received the weapon. So I'm hanging out in the parking lot, talking to them about this, and then this is the conversation that I had about those things.
Related to the homicides, those guns.
Really?
That came out of nowhere in the last 5 years.
When would you say it really stepped in?
I'd say probably 2017, 2018. So for sure, seeing them despite over the years before that, being out here, getting guns off the street, they were pretty much all serialized firearms, and then it seemed like there was like a finite number of them, and then once they started becoming ghost guns, it was like there's so many more out there.
You were in a homicide unit for how long when you started seeing this?
Pretty quick when I went over there in like 2017, 2018, is when we started seeing more of the guns being ghost guns, and that correlated directly with the streets and seeing the guns that the officers were taking off the streets for the ghost guns as well.
And if you had to put a percent, like how many percent of the homicides were done with ghost guns? You just had to take a guess. Nobody really has good data on it. So it's mostly. That's why I'm asking you, because like you probably know more than.
I mean, because we don't necessarily find the guns in a large number of cases. We don't ever find the murder weapon. I would say it's probably half and half.
Really?
Find the guns.
Really? Wow, that's a big change. Okay. So, you know, as a social scientist, I don't just take one officer's word for when they say something, right? I ask, and that's why I go out in the field, I ask multiple officers. I try to find out if I'm hearing the same story or if I'm just getting one person's opinion. And so even I've gone to 3 different divisions in this department, and I get a very similar answer. Did some work in the Southeast Division here, got similar answer from officers at San Diego Police Department too. So we don't know what the number is, but I'd say, you know, probably between 30 and 50% So I just want to pause there for a minute and just note that this is kind of a monumental moment when we're talking about gun violence. That those guns are involved in this percentage of homicides. As I mentioned earlier, this isn't the worst thing though. For me, what's really troubling is the fully automatic weapons. And so I have one more video that I'm gonna show. And I don't know if I can make it bigger or it's okay. I'm going to get to it in just a second. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is the fully automatic. It's another watershed. We're not just seeing automatic weapons. So go on here. Really try is figure out a to convert now.
So on a lot of these, you'll see this is normal right at the top one, only safe. That it's on just actually but in a full auto, basically it doesn't catch it after each round is fired. We're allowed to just so it's not so,
That would have been an additional charge, right?
yeah. Yeah.
When did you start?
Yeah, it's not improvised, so like they're all yeah. Especially on block hand.
Are they gang members? Are they like gun enthusiasts?
So it's all the people catch with them than anything else because they're easy to it's real easy for the most part you're small
the committing crimes. Really?
Last year, 80 rounds fired in one incident.
Subdivision. So I just wanted to show that video so you get a sense of what the gun looks like with the fully how it keeps the hammer from sticking, right? It just keeps clicking. There's nothing to stop it. So those, and you can look these up too. They're called auto sear switches. Those things in the past were purchased from China, but now 3D printing the auto sear switch. Trying to find we're talking about sear guns and the auto sear. So I just want to point that this is another game changer. We haven't quite seen the full effects of this, but it's something to keep an eye out for. And now that these switches are 3D printed, anyone can make them. So we get two varieties of fully automatic. We get the serialized weapon that's maybe stolen, and we have the ghost gun version. But the media, I just want to emphasize this point, they're overlooking the fact that ghost guns have automatic switches in them. So this is a game changer, and it's very common for the ATF to seize ghost guns that are fully automatic. They told me before it was kind of a big deal when they would seize a machine gun. Now it's just like, another machine gun, fully automatic ghost gun machine gun. And as the video pointed out, SAC PD is starting to see more shootings with fully automatic guns. And in the last 3 months, they reported shootouts with people using fully automatic weapons up in Northern California. So that marks kind of the fourth important point that I wanted to make today. And we spent a lot of time. Also, strategies that law enforcement is using to deal with this problem. And the way it works, San Diego actually created their own ghost gun unit. And the way the unit works in Sacramento is it's a collaboration between the gang enforcement team, the gang detectives, and ATF. And it could include any other local law enforcement too. It could be the sheriffs, CHP, CDCR, they're also involved. So what we're starting to see, and I don't know what people's thoughts are about this, but we're starting to see more collaboration now as a result of this, of local law enforcement in a way that we haven't seen before. Right? We kind of don't have a choice given the problem. I think with community involvement and understanding the problem, I'm thankful that I had access to some of these people through my research. That's why I felt it was important to share with you all because I'm a researcher. I've been doing this for the last 3 months of my work. I've just been blown away by the stuff that I just showed you. So I have to, and thank you for your time.
Individual
they people to produce a so is that people that manufacture these that's great. They're going to come at they're going to a lot. But, you know, that's what's different. That's what I kind of noticed is very different than seeing.
Is it the reason to keep it because that's what the law allows?
Right.
And then the second part is how can we wouldn't changing the advocating for actually changing in the law be something that we can advocate for or trying to push for changing the law.
Right, right. We have some people back here that have been pushing for local ordinances, but you know, one of the things a lot of people say is that 80% should be considered a gun, right? That would be one way of just solving the problem right there. So you can't sell these kits unserialized. That would solve the problem right there. The problem is, and this is a problem we have in the United States about gun violence in general, is that every state has their own law. So here's why we have interstate gun trafficking, right? Because the laws are different in Arizona. So I was talking to ATF about this, and they said, oh, you know, it's great that we're passing all these laws, but one of the things they were starting to see now is that it's getting harder to get the ghost gun material in California. So now people are starting to buy ghost guns in Nevada or Arizona. So that's until we have national standards, right? About, and this is what a lot of people are seeing. There's always going to be loopholes. And if you think about the AR-15 example I gave, that's why the AR-15 started, right? People thought they were going to be banned, so then people try to get creative and find another way around it to get those guns. Did I answer both your questions? Or did you have another second question? Okay. Yep.
So the Biden administration has rules for the ATF out that they're saying that that would make those guns would solve the issue that Dr. Martinez was talking about from the federal standpoint. So we're still waiting for that. Those regulations came out last year with through the comment period. So we're hoping to, but then that could change by the next administration. And so the other thing that's happening is there's a bill in the California state legislature right now that would try to lock down and make it so that all parts have to be serialized and go through a background check. So that's an important law that there's a newer into really locking on that. Pastor Sandoval, there's about.
Yes.
Also, I think, thank you, Dr. Martinez, for the presentation. And I think it's so important to understand what's happening right in our community when it comes to both. Dr. Martinez, as he said, he did a study, he wrote with SDPD, read with Escondido, went to the DA's office, and did some research on guns that's in our community, right, where they're coming from. Back then, it was residential burglary, either burglary, somebody you knew, I think about 67% of guns we finding were in the community, like gangs, was coming from that, stolen from a house, burglary, things like that. 30 to 40% was coming from like Arizona, Nevada, and so on. The game changer now is that in Lynn's class, she said, "What you mean by everybody? I don't have my gun." I'm like, when I said that's an exaggeration, but when I say everybody, you got to assume that everybody has. But I talked to the chief that's like here and said it, and there is a plethora. There's so many guns on the street. The chief smoking. I work at the city. What he told me was, he said, it's what he so there. With, but be educated on and know how to deal with that. But I think also what we have, as what Pastor Cannonball said, right, is that we have to, the young people that we're encountering, we have to educate them and teach them, right, to think, to control their emotions, so that, because like Pastor Cannonball, they're giving up the guns. And so we gotta think like they think. The guns, so correctly think to get to a place where they realize they don't need their gun anymore. So I think important, I think is when we dealing with the county still, that's out of all Therese and Carol, all part of that committee, because when they made an ordinance with the county, one of the things that I said was is that we have to, you know, these guns already impacted our community. So we have to do something to address what the other issue is. On for passing, quit getting stolen out of people's homes. We have those guns, so we have to make sure that those trauma with the underlying issues that lead to violence, and we can get that. And we have all these guns.
When there's guns involved with anything, there's money involved. You know what I mean? And you, man, they want to make some quick money, especially right now in these times. Just, you know, these thrift stores or wherever, like, okay, they're going up, so we're gonna have to pick it up too. So it's making it very, very hard for a lot of people. You get what I'm saying? I'm gonna keep it real. Sometimes I feel in my own pad, okay, as if I'm living, you know, the times are coming to where it's gonna be like a purge. You know what I mean? I'm serious. And I've never felt like that before in my own backyard. But it's like, you know, you gotta be on your toes. Because you never know. You just never know. And that's a terrible thing. You know what I'm saying? But I don't trip on it. I keep it G, pushing from day to day. But I'm just saying, though, for those that don't know, working and day, you know, hard just to keep what it is you have for someone at any good given time. The consequences at that time? No, they're not. Because you got different types, you know, of burglars, robbers, so on and so forth. Home invasions. You understand what I'm saying? So there's a lot to look at, man, every single day. You got to be on your best of vigilance, is what I'm saying. I just thought I'd put that out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I should have prefaced my talk. And, you know, we can talk about the supply of guns on the day, but then you got to ask yourself, why is it demand? What's going on in people's lives? Poverty. That's a time for another talk.
But Chris addresses that, and that's
And group very similar to this group called Advanced Peace. They're street outreach workers. They have a fellowship program, and they provide support. You have to earn, right? You don't just get the side, but they provide all sorts of services, cognitive, behavioral, and trying to create what people, so when they feel threatened or they feel they're going to do something, they can go back and they can talk to somebody. I was sharing this with Pastor. I said, what do you consider to be a success? And they said, I consider a success to be that when you feel like doing something like grabbing your gun or acting out of anger, you call your mentor, you call your outreach worker, and you diffuse a situation by having that support. So that's kind of what I see you all doing.
I do want to mention something, because sometimes we think like it's not possible, right? There's too much going on. But I think there's people in this room, depending if you have a relationship with a youth or a mentor, that's going to be the key. If you have a relationship with them, and I can only speak from personal experience where they have reached out and say, I feel like doing this, I got this. My first instinct is this, turn it in, and the response is, I'd rather get caught with it than without it. But one thing they through talking to them to help de-escalate the situation, they didn't resort to going to go do that, what they were going to go do. And so does your words, a gentle answer turns away wrath, is that all of us here probably know someone that has something. And the ones that have it, not everyone will use. Some will just keep that at home for protection, that kind of stuff. But the ones that are carrying it, if they're carrying it with them, those that are not, say they're not emotionally stable, they can't control their anger, and that interaction between the accessibility and someone that's high risk of using it. And so this is where mentoring programs, this is where all of us that are here, is we know that we can assume they have them, the youngsters have them. Go happily, bloody nose, now it's going to go to that really quick. What we can do is plant the seed, water the seed. And there's many people in this room who say, well, it may not happen, but many people, we found peace within ourselves to be able to say, you know what, I can deal with this a different way. And maybe you might have a protection for your home or whatever when the purge happens, but it's not, yeah, but it's not, carrying it with you, everywhere you go. And so simple little things, what I would tell the youngsters, because they're not thinking, right? I took, take them here or take them there, pick them up and say, see those youngsters right now? It's 10, 11 o'clock night. They're at the 7-Eleven. They're sitting ducks because they're putting themselves at the wrong place at the wrong time. So it could be something like if you're going to go down to the store to get whatever, or 7-Eleven, you might need to just go down during the day real quick, get your whatever you're going to get and go back home. Because even if you go to the taco shop to go get some food and come back home, just that little trip there and back, someone else that's out there riding around can get you. So intervening at the right time, at the right place, I think because of the accessibility now, that's we're having this conversation with the youngsters. And we know that they're not going to listen, right? But we can plant the seed, we can water the seed, okay? And I'll say that because I know there's someone in this room, I don't want to put them on the spot, but, I don't want to put them on the spot, but they had reasons to go do something and they didn't, and now they're resorting to calling their mentor coming to spaces like this, coming to church on Wednesdays. Coming. So I know it's possible and it's real and it's happening. We do have 10 more minutes. And so I think someone over there, John?
I've been working in gangs about 31 years. So word out there, here and there, I hear. They can get most done now.
Yeah.
So it's gonna.
Yeah.
That's why I think that the 3D printer, once those 3D printed ghost guns come out, there's no stopping it, right? You don't have to buy a kit, you can't trace it, and that's going to be the next biggest problem, right? So you're right. Every time people think there's going to be a ban or a law, they always find creative ways to get around it and a hustle to get it in.
Like the COVID hit,
All right, one more, and then we're gonna close out. And then we'll go,
A question, Dr. Martinez, your research, doesn't go to states that have open carry laws?
You know, right now I just focus on I got my hands full with
Because
California.
I know California is like highly regulated when it comes to guns, and it's hard for me to understand. It's hard for me to understand that there's such a high volume of gun issues in California. But other states that are open carry, you don't have that problem. And I was just wondering if you think that if we deregulate the system, if it would help put the guns into law abiding citizens.
Yeah.
And have them defend themselves, and if that would verify it.
But what's that population? No, hold on. But I gotta ask another question. What's the population that you're using? So
I'll say
the
over
major
there,
cities, like Chicago. Chicago has no guns, and they have the highest, right?
So
So
what I'm saying is gun law actually help you?
Yeah, so again, just to bring it back, we don't have national standards for gun laws. So if one state does one thing,
listen up, guys.
the other state.
One last thing.
You gotta have a national policy. Otherwise, Arizona, for example.
they're not populated, right? Open carry. They're not major cities.
They go to those places. They have the gun violence. I'm not, no one wants to have. I know it was.
We got Pastor Benny. Go ahead.
The thing is we can do what we can as people who come from the background of that. But the thing is, it's kind of hard when meeting with the laws of California. The reason why is because all the other states, they're real straightforward when it comes to doing time. You do 15, you do 15. Here, they give for just doing a crime. I was locked up in Bakersfield County, can't go to court, and there was two guys that were there. One was going to court for attempted murder, and the other one was going in for murder. The one that went in for murder, they gave him 10. All right. Well, so you got less, and we all know that California is like even when it comes, but it's also money maker. Why? Because they're making money off prisons. So to meet together, but they're not, when it comes to money, it's hard for people to do what we do something. That's the only thing we can do.
All right, if we can all stand together, circle up. Up for Dr. Sid Martinez. We'll be able to continue the conversation next Monday. Yeah. To be continued. We do have an announcement. One of our brothers, Ricky, if you want to announce a thing you're doing, listen up, please.
So with, $10,000 having a raffle, we have $4 for $100.
Listen up, please. 4 raffles for $100.
Whatever you size it, enter to size, and I got over 600 pairs.
Jordan?
Yeah, Jordan, Nike, LeBron, all that.
Yeah.
Free.
What's your Instagram?
My Instagram is
RP_ church clothes.
Yeah, you guys get into the, go to the Season of Peace page on Facebook. You
Season
got
of
all
Peace
the information right there.
page.
I see it.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. There you
All right.
go. All right.
Right, Bishop, if you could close us out in prayer.
All right. Good Lord. Heavenly Father, we just come to you in the name of the Lord Jesus. We thank you, Father, for this opportunity that we did have to come together, Lord. We thank you for Dr. Sid Martinez. We thank you for all those that have come out today and the great conversation that we had. During this season of peace, Lord, we just ask, oh God, that you would touch and bless our communities, touch the hearts and minds of every individual so we can continue to have a conversation about nonviolence and our young people that are caught up in the violence, Lord. Stay their hand, oh God, and help us to reach them, Lord, before it's too late, Father. You know the hearts of every person, and you can give us access to them. So Lord, open up those doors so we can reach those in our community that need to be reached, that are impacted and involved in the gang violence. We thank you, Lord, and we just ask, oh God, your blessings continue to be upon us, oh Father, as we go through the season of peace. We thank you for this meeting, and we dismiss right here, right now.
If you'd like to volunteer for the April 9th event, please see Mr. G. Mr. G, if you can raise your hand. Where's Mr. G? If you can raise your hand. If you'd like to volunteer for the Seasons of Peace event, please see Mr. G. He'll take your information out.